Greece is a country in southeastern Europe, known in Greek as Hellas or Ellada, and consists of a continent and an archipelago of islands. Ancient Greece is the birthplace of Western philosophy, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, literature, Homer and Hesiod, mathematics, Pythagoras and Euclid, history, Herodotus, drama, Sophocles, Euripides and Aristophanes, the Olympic Games and democracy. The concept of an atomic universe was first proposed in Greece through the work of Democritus and Leucippus. Today's scientific method process was first introduced through the work of Thales of Miletus and those who followed him. The Latin alphabet also comes from ancient Greece, having been introduced to the region during Phoenician colonization in the 8th century BC, and early work in physics and engineering was started by Archimedes from the Greek colony of Syracuse, among others. Mainland Greece is a large peninsula surrounded on three sides by the Mediterranean Sea, branching into the Ionian Sea to the west and the Aegean Sea to the east, which also comprises the islands known as the Cyclades and Dodecanese, including Rhodes, the Ionian Islands, including Corcyra, the island of Crete, and the southern peninsula known as the Peloponnese. The geography of Greece greatly influenced the culture in which, with few natural resources and surrounded by water, the people ended up taking their livelihood to the sea. Mountains cover 80% of Greece, and only small rivers run through a rocky landscape that, for the most part, offers little incentive for agriculture. Consequently, early ancient Greeks colonized neighboring islands and founded settlements along the coast of Anatolia, also known as Asia Minor, present-day Turkey. The Greeks became skilled sailors and merchants who, possessing an abundance of raw materials for stone construction and great skill, built some of the most impressive structures of antiquity. My name is Francisca, and welcome to the Myths and Curiosities channel. Enjoy, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any notifications. The designation Hellas derives from Hellen, son of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who feature prominently in Ovid's tale of the Great Flood in his Metamorphoses. The mythical Deucalion, son of the fire-bearing Titan Prometheus, was the savior of the human race from the Great Flood, just as Noah is presented in the biblical version or Utnapishtim in the Mesopotamian version. Deucalion and Pyrrha repopulate the land once the floodwaters receded, casting stones that become people, the first being Helen. I am inclined to think that the name itself was not yet given to the whole country, and indeed did not exist before the time of Hellen, son of Deucalion, the different tribes, of which the history of ancient Greece is most easily understood by breaking it down into time periods. The region was already colonized and agriculture started during the Paleolithic era, as evidenced by finds in the Petrolona and Franchthai caves, two of the oldest human dwellings in the world. The Neolithic Age, circa 6000 to circa 2900 BC, is characterized by permanent settlements, mainly in northern Greece, domestication of animals, and the development of agriculture. Archaeological finds in northern Greece, Thessaly, Macedonia, and Sesklo, among others, suggest an Anatolian migration in which the ceramic cups and bowls and figures found share distinctive Neolithic qualities found in Anatolia. These inland settlers were mainly farmers, as northern Greece was more conducive to agriculture than other parts of the region and lived in one-room stone houses with a wooden and clay roof. The Cycladic civilization, circa 3200 to 1100 BC, flourished on the islands of the Aegean Sea, including Delos, Naxos, and Paros, and provides the earliest evidence of continuous human habitation in that region. During the Cycladic period, houses and temples were built in finished stone and people lived by fishing and trading. This period is generally divided into three phases: Lower Cyclades, Middle Cyclades, and Late Cyclades, with constant development in art and architecture. The last two phases overlap and eventually merge with Minoan civilization, and the differences between the periods become indistinguishable. The Minoan civilization, 2700 to 1500 BC, developed on the island of Crete and quickly became the dominant maritime power in the region. The term Minoan was coined by archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans, who discovered the Minoan palace at Knossos in 1900 CE and named the culture for the ancient Cretan king Minos. The name by which people knew each other is not known. The Minoan civilization was thriving, as the Cycladic civilization appears to have been, long before the accepted modern dates that mark its existence and probably before 6000 BC. The Minoans developed a writing system known as Linear A, which has yet to be deciphered, and made advances in shipbuilding, construction, pottery, arts and sciences, and warfare. King Minos is credited by ancient historians, Thucydides among them, as being the first person to establish a navy with which he colonized or conquered the Cyclades. Archaeological and geological evidence on Crete suggests that this civilization fell due to overuse of land, causing deforestation, although traditionally it is accepted that they were conquered by the Mycenaeans. The eruption of the volcano on the nearby island of Thera, present-day Santorini, between 1650 and 1550 BC and the resulting tsunami is recognized as the ultimate cause of the downfall of the Minoans. The island of Crete was flooded and towns and villages destroyed. This event has often been cited as Plato's inspiration in creating his myth of Atlantis in his dialogues of Critias and Timaeus. The Mycenaeans and their gods. The Mycenaean civilization, approximately 1900 to 1100 BC, is commonly recognized as the beginning of Greek culture, although we know next to nothing about the Mycenaeans except what can be determined by archaeological finds and Homer's account of his war with Troy, as per recorded in the Iliad. They are credited with establishing the culture due primarily to their architectural advances, their development of a writing system, known as Linear B, an early form of Greek descended from the Minoan Linear A, and the establishment or improvement of religious rites. The Mycenaeans seem to have been greatly influenced by the Minoans of Crete in their worship of the earth goddesses and sky gods, which in time became the classical Greek pantheon. Greek mythology provided a solid paradigm of the creation of the universe, the world, and human beings. An ancient myth relates how, in the beginning, there was nothing but chaos in the form of endless waters. From this chaos came the goddess Eurynome, who separated water from air and began her dance of creation with the serpent Ophion. From her dance, all creation came into being, and Eurynome was, originally, the great mother goddess and creator of all things. By the time Hesiod and Homer were writing, 8th century BC, this story had developed into the most familiar myth about the Titans, Zeus' war against them, and the birth of the Olympian gods with Zeus as their chief. This shift indicates a move from a matriarchal religion to a patriarchal paradigm. Whichever model was followed, however, the gods clearly interacted regularly with the humans who worshipped them and were a huge part of everyday life in ancient Greece. Before the arrival of the Romans, the only road in mainland Greece that was not a cowpath was the Holy Way, which ran between the city of Athens and the holy city of Eleusis, the birthplace of the Eleusinian mysteries celebrating the goddess Demeter and his daughter Persephone. Around 1100 BC, at the time of the Bronze Age collapse, the great Mycenaean cities of southwestern Greece were abandoned and, some claim, their civilization destroyed by an invasion of the Doric Greeks. Archaeological evidence is inconclusive as to what led to the downfall of the Mycenaeans. As no written record from this period has survived, or has yet to be discovered, one can only speculate on the causes. The Linear B writing tablets found so far contain only lists of goods exchanged in commerce or kept in stock. It seems clear, however, that after what is known as the Greek Dark Ages, approximately 1100 to 800 BC, so named due to the absence of written documentation, Greek colonization was underway in much of Asia Minor and the surrounding islands. From mainland Greece and began to make significant cultural advances. Starting at c. 585 BC, the first Greek philosopher, Thales of Miletus, was involved in what would now be recognized as scientific research off the coast of Asia Minor, and this region of Ionian colonies would make significant advances in Greek philosophy and mathematics. The Archaic period, 800 to 500 BC, is characterized by the introduction of republics rather than monarchies, which, in Athens, moved towards democratic rule, organized as a single city-state or polis, the institution of laws, the reforms of Draco in Athens, the great Panathenaic festival was established, distinguished Greek pottery and Greek sculpture were born, and the first coins minted in the island kingdom of Aegina. This then set the stage for the flourishing of the classical period of ancient Greece, given as 500 to 400 BC, or, more accurately, as 480 to 323 BC, from the Greek victory at the Battle of Salamis to the death of Alexander the Great. This was the golden age of Athens, when Pericles began the construction of the Acropolis and gave his famous eulogy to the men who died defending Greece at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC. Greece peaked in almost every area of human learning during this period, and the great thinkers and artists of antiquity, Phidias, Plato, Aristophanes, to mention just three, flourished. Leonidas and his 300 Spartans fell at Thermopylae, and in the same year, 480 BC, Themistocles won victory over the superior Persian naval fleet at Salamis, leading to the final defeat of the Persians at the Battle of Plataea in 479 BC. Democracy, literally demos equals people and kratos equals power, so people power, was established in Athens, allowing all male citizens over 20 to have a voice in the Greek government. The pre-Socratic philosophers, following the example of Thales, initiated what would become the scientific method in the exploration of natural phenomena. Men like Anaximander, Anaximenes, Pythagoras, Democritus, Xenophanes, and Heraclitus abandoned the theistic model of the universe and strove to discover the first underlying cause of life and the universe. His successors, including Euclid and Archimedes, continued to advance Greek science and philosophical inquiry and further established mathematics as a serious discipline. The example of Socrates and the writings of Plato and Aristotle after him influenced Western culture and society for over 2,000 years. This period also saw advances in architecture and art, with a move from the ideal to the realist. Famous works of Greek sculpture such as the Parthenon marbles and the Discobolos, the discus thrower, date from this era and epitomize the artist's interest in depicting human emotion, beauty, and achievement realistically, even though these qualities are displayed in works with immortals. All these developments in culture were made possible by the rise of Athens after the victory over the Persians in 480 BC. The peace and prosperity that followed the Persian defeat provided the finances and stability for the culture to flourish. Athens became the superpower of the time and, with the most powerful navy, was able to demand tribute from other city-states and enforce their wishes. Athens formed the Delian League, a defensive alliance whose stated aim was to deter the Persians from further hostilities. The city-state of Sparta, however, doubted Athenian sincerity and formed its own association for protection against its enemies, the Peloponnesian League, so named for the Peloponnesian region where Sparta and the others were located. City-states that allied with Sparta increasingly perceived Athens as a bully and a tyrant, while cities that allied with Athens viewed Sparta and its allies with increasing distrust. The tension between these two parties eventually erupted in what became known as the Peloponnesian Wars. The first conflict, c. 400 who ruled the country from his palace in Macedonia. The Roman Republic became increasingly involved in the affairs of Greece during this period, and in 168 BC it defeated Macedonia at the Battle of Pydna. After this date, Greece came under the influence of Rome. In 146 BC, the region was designated a protectorate of Rome, and the Romans began to imitate Greek fashion, philosophy, and to some extent, Greek sensibilities. In 31 BC, Octavian Caesar annexed the country as a province of Rome after his victory over Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium. Octavian became Caesar Augustus and Greece part of the Roman Empire. Hope you enjoyed this video. And if you liked it, share it with your friends, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.